We'll do a review on Likkutei Sichos in Pelik Chof Tes. This is the third Sicha for the portion of Vaetchanun. These are actually the last, it's a Rashi Sicha, the last Rashi, on the last words in the Parsha, Vaetchanun. And there's going to be a very interesting debate that the Rebbe uh, is going to conclude that according to Pshat, according to Rashi, there definitely is a reward for mitzvahs. Some of the commentators are trying to explain Rashi, that Rashi follows the view that schar mitzvah b'ha'al maleko, there's no real reward, but the Rebbe says we can't say that al pi pshutei shel mikra. The Rebbe's key answer to this Rashi, as we will see, will be the word litel scharim. Rashi says that we work today and then we take the schar. There's a difference between taking the reward and being given the reward, as the Rebbe will elaborate. So let's go step by step. Aleph. Schanim Gimel Aleph. Ois Aleph. Auf die letzte zwei Wörter von unser Sedra, ושמרת es המצווה גוימר אשר אנוכי מצווך, the last two words of the Sedra, it says, V'shomarto es ha-mitzvah goymer asher anochi mitzavcha. You should keep, you should guard, you should observe the mitzvah that I command you. The verse says, Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom la'asoiso. I command you today to do them. So what's the emphasis? Doesn't just say, I command you to do them. It doesn't say Asher Anochi mitzavcha la'asoisom. He says Anochi mitzavcha hayom la'asoisom, to do them today. What is the emphasis? Is Rashi mefarish? So Rashi explains Ulemochor la'olam habo litil schor, that the next day, later on, which is in this context, it means the world to come, then we'll take the reward. So the verse is emphasizing, do them today, and the next day you will get, or you will take the reward. What's the pshat over here? So the Mefarshim explain, according to the way it's mashma from the Gemara and the source, that sometimes people who are not doing the proper things, Rishoyim, Hashem sometimes pays them in this world so that they don't get a part in the world to come. And the other way around, it goes by tzaddikim, those who keep Anochi Mitzavcha. So today you get to do the mitzvahs, and maybe sometimes you don't get the reward. It'll be l'mochar lo'olam habo litin schar. Let's look inside. Learn the Mefarshim. So the way the Mefarshim explain this. As der Pirush Rashi kommt behemshach zu seinem Pirush vom früher de Kompas. That this commentary of Rashi comes as a follow-up to the commentary on the previous pasuk. Previous, it says in the pasuk, Umishalem l'soinov el ponov lehavidoy, that Hashem pays his enemies, those who are Rishoyim, to his face. He gives them the reward now, lahavidoy, to get them lost in the future. Elam habo. B'chayo, Rashi teaches, mishalem loy gemuloi hatov. During his lifetime, Hashem pays him his good for what he has done good, his payment for what he's done good. And the reason Hashem pays it to him now in this world, kidei lehavidoy min ha'olam habo, so to destroy him, to get him lost, so that he won't have olam habo, to take him away from olam habo. Das heißt, which means that Eberster zolt up a Rosh Zayin Schar Hashem pays the reward, the Rasha, for his good deeds in this world. Today, er is only talking so he doesn't have Elam Haba. That's what Rashi says in the previous pasuk. And following that, which takes place with the Rasha, the pasuk says, "V'shomarto gomer hayom lasos." And pasuk says, so keep today to do the ulam machor lo'ilam habolitas scharo. But you later on tomorrow in olam habo you'll get the reward. As by tzaddikim is parker. By tzaddikim is just the opposite. Azeir schar is nit hayom. Their reward is not today in olam hazeh in this world, nor lemochor lo'ilam habo, but tomorrow in the world to come. Val schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. There is no reward for the mitzvah in this world. So you only do the mitzvah today. Today to do to get the schar tomorrow. Schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. There is no reward for a mitzvah in this world. As we'll see later on, this is a whole discussion, the Gemara in Kiddushin, the Rebbe will bring down later on, whether we have reward in this world or not. And the Gemara brings the proof from certain stories that the people were Mekayim Kibbud Abba'im, and they were Mekayim the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen, and yet they later on got hurt. And whereas the schar, the Gemara concludes there's schar mitzvah b'al maleka, there is no reward. So this is basically the way they explain Rashi, that Rashi is trying to say that previously we learned that the Rishoyim get their schar al panov here, so lahavida, so he won't get the Elam Haba. And the tzaddikim is the opposite. They do the mitzvahs in the Elam Hazeh and don't get reward, and the reward comes l'machor l'Elam Haba litmul schar. This is actually fits the way it is in the Gemara, which is the source from Rashi. Dos is masi midivrei hashas. This fits with the words of the Talmud, the Shas. The Mokar from Pirush Rashi, which is the source of this Rashi, they bring down this statement that today you do and tomorrow you receive reward. As a follow-up in continuation to this statement, he will not delay to pay back those who hate him, or the ones who he hates. Hashem doesn't delay to pay them back for the good deals. So the Gemara says, it's those who he hates, he doesn't delay and pays them right away. But to complete tzaddikim, he does delay. And the Gemara says, "V'hainu the Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi." This is what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says. My diksi, what is the meaning of the pasuk Hayom la'asoisom? Sharanochi b'tzam Hayom la'asoisom. Hayom la'asoisom. Today, do that. L'mochor l'kabel schorim. To the next day, Elam Haba, in the future, to get the reward. So, thus haste. So, you see in the Gemara clearly. And what is the meaning of this pasuk? When he says tomorrow, afterwards you'll get the reward, meant Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. What Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi means, as der Eibishter is bedavke ma'acher dem schar fun tzadikim gemurim. He specifically delays the payment of tzadikim gemurim. If on the next day, he delays it for the tzadikim gemurim, because the pasuk says that's what Rav Levi says. Hayom la'asoisom, and do it today because you're not going to get the schar. The schar you're going to get later on, tzadikim gemurim. That seems to be the pshat in Rashi, according to the Mefarshim explained that that it fits with the Gemara. But the Rebbe has difficulty with this pshat because the whole concept of saying that there is no payment for mitzvahs that you do in this world goes against to the simple meaning of the pshat of many verses that we've learned. And how could we possibly say that? Base. Es ist aber schwer zu einlernen, dem Pirush in Divrei Rashi. This is difficult to interpret this interpretation of Rashi. But number one, Aleph, if Rashi is trying to say that as opposed to the Russia, which he gets paid, but the one who does the mitzvahs, he does not get paid. So Rashi should have emphasized in Gemara, that's the Gemara, dem nigut, the as opposed to. As in them posig v'shamarta goymer hayom la'soisom, when the posig says, keep them, that you do them today, retzif nit wegen soinov, we're not talking about those who he hates, nor wegen tzadikim gemurim, we're talking about tzadikim. So Rashi should have said the opposite. Ulemochor, the tzadikim, they, as opposed to the Rishonim that we said before. For them, was Rashi is soisim. Rashi closed it up and says hayom la soisim ulemochor. Just generally speaking, do today, tomorrow. Nitmachen der baikin chiluki, without making any distinctions. Who gets paid in the future is mashma, as Rashi is oisen zu sagen. It seems like Rashi is trying to tell us a klal, a rule b'shayches to ali, that all Yidden, that this is not only tzaddikim will get, to tell us that everybody gets the schar le'olam habo, but not to say as opposed to the Rishonim. It's not mashma in Lashon Rashi. Rashi should have said tzaddikim get in the, but it doesn't say tzaddikim, it's mashma everybody. But mainly the Rebbe's issue is, how could we say that Rashi holds there is no schar for tzaddikim, base, and mostly the Rebbe says, vi kemen zogen, as like Pirush Rashi, how can we possibly say that according to Rashi, which is like Shute Shal Mikra, this is the simple meaning of the verse, is schar mitzvah b'hayam aleko, that there's no reward for mitzvah in this world. B'shas seinen faran aribui psukim in Chumash. There's many verses in the Chumash where werden angesagt asach Yehudim kashmi, where they are instructed many physical promises for kiyum haTorah v'hamitzvos, for the observance of Torah mitzvahs. They're physical promises for them. These are rewards for doing mitzvahs. U'b'l'shein hakosu, to use the language of the pasuk. Im b'chukois haytelechu, the pasuk says, if you go in my statutes, etc. I'll give you your reign and time. With all the blessings that are enumerated in the parsha. So very clearly, to follow the Torah gives you the brachas. So this is the parsha b'chukois noch mehr, but even more. Gleich noch unser pasuk, immediately after our pasuk, kommen die psukim b'hoyekev tishma. Right here it says, because you will listen, Gomer, Hashem will love you and He'll bless you, Gomer. He'll bless the fruit of your stomach and the fruit of your grain. Baruch Tir, be blessed, Gomer, remove all sicknesses, Vachalti, leads to Gomer. All these psukim are talking about physical matters, and we're talking about Ekev Tishmo. So how could we say, B'pshuta Shal Mikra, that there is no reward? Rashi is saying that there is no reward in this world for the mitzvahs. But you're not going to get a reward. Now, this is a classical question that the Mefarshim answer with the distinction that there's two parts in the schar. There's a schar, a reward, a payment for doing mitzvahs. That's not what we're talking about in these psukim. these psukim that talk about, based on the Rambam, these psukim that talk about if you listen to Hashem, you get all your physical needs. That's only in order to be able to do the Torah mitzvahs properly. So you need to have all your physical needs met, so you don't have any distractions. But the actual reward is taken not in this world. So it's not a contradiction to the fact that it says in the pasuk that you're going to physical promises. Those promises are not schar. Those promises are just those rewards are just so you can do the mitzvah. They're not rewards, but they're just means helping you to do Torah mitzvahs. And the real reward, Itaka, doesn't exist. So that would not be a contradiction. But the Rebbe says we can't say this in Pshuta Shemikra Gimel. Meforshim Farentferen Al Pidivir Rambam Hayidun, based on the known words of the Rambam, as the emeser inyan from schar mitzvahs, what is truly considered reward for mitzvahs, is chaye ha'olam haba. That's the life in the world to come. When the alle Yudim Gashmim and all these physical promises and employees, they're only there not as rewards. That's so Hashem removes from us all matters that prevent us. He should give to us all the goodness, which supports our hands, gives us the strength, gives us everything we need. To do the Torah. Today, once we have everything we need and we can do the Torah mitzvahs, so that we can merit the world to come. And therefore, so what does Rashi mean, lemocher, to take the reward? Talking about the real reward, the olam haba. Well, the Rebbe says schar mitzvah b'l'shen Rambam shom, because the real, what is the end result? What is the main, the ultimate reward for the mitzvahs? Soif matan schoren shel mitzvahs is chaya olam haba, the life of the world to come. And if them zokt schar mitzvah ba'al malach, and here we see, and there's no reward of mitzvah in this world. So that would not be such a conflict to what we know in the psukim. Why can't we say that this is what Rashi means, that we don't get the schar for olam haba, that we don't get in this world? We get that later, but today we just do without getting that ultimate schar, which is going to come to us later. Although we're going to get all the things that help us do the mitzvahs. The Rebbe says we cannot accept Adosis Shitas Rashi b'Pshuta Shel Mikra, that this is Rashi's view in the simple meaning of the pasuk, that we don't get the physical rewards as a response to our mitzvahs, as a reward, as a payment. But so first, besides the fact, the Rebbe says in the bracket, besides the fact, Noisef Lozeh, if that's what Rashi meant, so Rashi would have said more clearly, Rashi. So then, if that was the case, Rashi is talking about the ultimate schar, not just general schar, also gishurim. So Rashi, who writes Pirusha B'Loshen Bori, he writes it very clearly, writes it for a child. So Rashi writes everything clearly. Somewhere he should have made this distinction about different kinds of schar. To know that here, when we're saying you don't get the schar, it's talking about a different schar, not the schar that you get for helping you do the mitzvah. L'chazik yisyadeinu. As the udim gashmi shebet Torah, zayne nida schar mitzvah, that those physical promises of the Torah are not really worth the mitzvah. Odeli idoch, or on the other hand, so somewhere Rashi should say in the other psukim that these are not really the reward. Rashi doesn't say it anymore. Or Rashi should say it over here, that we're not talking about this schar gash, we're talking about the ilm habo schar. Or the leidoch, Rashi gedaft madgish sein do. Rashi should emphasize here in unser pasuk, in our verse, as eret nit wegen dem schar hamaduber b'Torah, that he is not discussing here the schar which is discussed in the Torah, nor wegen soit matan schoron kiyotze, that we're talking about the end of the play, which is the Elam Haba or similar. So Rashi should have said that's lemochor lekabel, this kind of schar. But Rashi doesn't say it by the Yudim Gashmim that that's a not really schar, and doesn't say over here that we're talking about the real schar, the Soitmat schar. is therefore it's hard to say that this is what Rashi means. Well, besides that, the Rebbe says, Aleph, we find a clear pasuk in which we see that the schar is going to be from these promises. That's the actual schar, not just so you can do mitzvahs. In pasuk Panisi Aleichem, when the pasuk says, "I will turn to you," Vasret wegen Yudim Gashmi, which talks about physical promises, such as V'hivrei Erba Eschem, I will multiply. V'hirbei Eschem, I will increase you. Is Rashi Mefarish? Rashi explains. Efne mikol asokar l'shalim schorchem. I will turn away from all my occupation. I'm going to pay you a reward. And Rashi gives an example. Moshe lemoha dover dema. It is compared. This thing. What can we compare it? The melech shesochar poyel b'chulu, a king who hired workers, etc., and comes to pay them. Because their phone is klor. That's Rashi. This makes very clear Rashi's view on the Torah, as the l'shalim schorchem. What does it mean to pay your work? What does it mean to pay the reward? Isn't it not an inyan tzedadi? We're not just talking something on the side, hasoros hamanis and kiyum mitzvahs, to give you, to remove anything that might prevent you doing mitzvahs. Nor the baloinim for the ravei gufa. This is a pay for the service itself. Punkt v'deschar was mitzot. Pay alim, just as the reward you pay to workers. That's what we're talking about. So that's in addition. So first of all, there's no one in Rashi, and it doesn't. We don't find that distinction. And second of all, Rashi clearly says that this is payment like a worker, so this is regular payment. And number two, the whole source for schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka comes from the psukim of L'man Yerichin Yomecha, you have long days, as I mentioned earlier, by Shiluch HaKen and also by Kibud Avayim. But Rashi doesn't type there like the Gemara, that it means spiritual Arichas Yomim, it means long life in the spiritual sense. So therefore, Rashi learns it literally. So we have really no source to say, to argue. Rashi is talking about that we don't have the reward of mitzvah. It's difficult to accept as Rashi b'Pirusha Torah is mefarish b'derman Omer. The Rashi in his commentary on the Torah will go like the opinion, because in the Gemara is also two opinions. But Rashi goes like the opinion when Rashi says l'mocha l'kaves schoram, that's schar mitzvah ba'al moleka. Rashi goes like the view that says no, there is no reward in this world, like the Mefarshim explained Rashi. It's hard to explain that. Well, der mocker wie search shita zu seinen die psukim. Because what's the source and the basis for that view are the verses L'man Yarichon Yomecha U'Leman Yitavloch. Those psukim that you have long days and be good to use, which is written by Kibud Avayim, by honoring your father and mother, U'Leman Yitavloch Varachta Yomim, long good to you and long life by Shiluch HaKen. As dos meint, so over there, the Gemara says, what does that mean? Good to you means to the world that is good. It doesn't mean this world. That's talking about a world which is all long, which means we're not talking about this world. Not Yitavloch by the Kivud Avayim is talking about by Olam Haba, and Riches Yomi means Olam Haba, not in this world. That's the opinion that says there is no schar mitzvah maleka. But look how Rashi teaches. Aber Rashi b'pirush al Torah bringt nicht auf die psukim an all dem pirush. He doesn't bring the interpretation Olam shekuli tov shekuli aruch, a world which is all good, Olam Haba, or long, which is Olam Haba. Ba'adrabah. On the contrary, from Stimas Loshan Rashi from Pasik, Rashi doesn't say, Rashi closing, not commenting on this, on the language, explaining it anyways different than you would see on your own in Pasik. Kabed goyim leman yarichon yomecha. So he says, im techabed yarichon. If you're going to honor, your days will be long. In love, doesn't say you get a haba. But there's a posik similar when it talks about the shiluach hakem. It says shalach to shalach goyim leman yitavloch. Rashi doesn't say be good to you in el haba. Rashi says there in mitzvah kaloch ulam rotoy leman yitavloch. If for a small mitzvah the Torah says it will be good to you, but after yomim, how much more so the reward you get for mitzvahs chamuras? And Rashi doesn't say that we're talking about matan schoron, laos, and anything else. So all this Rashi doesn't make no mention of that. Is muchach, it's evident. As Rashi holds that pshuta shel mikra is arichas yomim u'toiba k'pshuta begashma. Now, what does it talk long days? And good means literally, physically. Und das ist euch machen schoren shel mitzvahs chamuras. This is also the reward for the serious mitzvahs. Also, all mitzvahs get the easy mitzvahs and serious mitzvahs, strict mitzvahs, you get in this world. So now we come back to the question to its place. We have the problem. How does Rashi in the end of our parsha say it simply? That it's only the next day. Elam haba will get this schar. Rashi doesn't hold that anywhere. We don't. That's not Rashi's view. So how does Rashi say here that l'mochel elam haba litul schorim? So that's the issue. We have to understand what does Rashi mean it. As the Rebbe will explain in the answer after asking another question in the next days, but the Rebbe will explain that the key here is litel, to take it, versus lekabel, as the Rebbe will continue to explain later on. The Rebbe is going to bring further a proof that Rashi doesn't really mean to say that there is no reward in this world, and it's going to be in the next world. But Rashi's emphasis, as we'll see in the language in the Gemara, is not just that it's going to be next, but there is nothing in this world, which means the reward will come later on, will come in Olam Haba, and it's not in this world. But the language of Rashi, if Rashi is trying to tell us that there is no reward over here, Rashi should not use the positive saying the word will be Olam Haba, but Rashi should use as the Lashon of the Gemara that there's no reward in this world, rather than saying the reward is the next world. Because that's the main emphasis, if that's what Rashi really means. And this points that Rashi means something else, as the Rebbe will explain. Let's look inside. Eich is nitglatik in Lashon Rashi. Also, it's not really smooth in Rashi's language, this interpretation of the Mefarshim that Rashi is coming to tell us that by the people who do Hashem's will, there is no reward in this world, but in the world to come, that schar mitzvah b'ha'al maleka, that doesn't sit smoothly in the language of Rashi. And the Rebbe quotes, there's two places in the Gemara which this is brought down. Der Maimer hayom la'soisum u'lemochar litl schorom, that today we do, and lemochar el mabo, we take the schar, werd gebracht in Zwerter in Shas, it's brought in two places in the Talmud. In Masechta Eruvin, and in Masechta Avodah Zorah, aber b'shin Lashon. It's brought in both places. There's a little bit slight change of language. In Masechta Eruvin, which is what Rashi quotes over here, the language, is the Lashon Hayom la'asoisom, v'loy lemochar la'asoisom. We do today, not tomorrow. And then it says Hayom la'asoisom, and lemochar lekabel schorah. Not that we don't get schar hayom, but we get it on the next day. But in Masechta Avodah Zorah, over there, the emphasis steht hayom la'asoisom, v'loy lemochar la'asoisom, that we do today, not lemochar. But then it also says hayom la'asoisom, v'loy hayom little schar, and we don't take schar today. So you see, the way the language is in Masechta Avodah Zorah, So over there, it clearly states that we don't get the schar today. So the emphasis that there is no schar today. In Meseches Eruvin, it says that we do today, and we don't, and tomorrow we get the schar, like Rashi uses the lashon. But in Masechta Avodah Zarah, it says we don't get schar today. The emphasis is that we're not getting the schar. And the Rebbe says, why does Rashi not choose the language of the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, which is more aligned with this Pirush, if Rashi wants to tell us that there is no reward for mitzvahs in this world? So Rashi should not say the schar will be L'olam haba. Rashi say, like in Masechta Avodah Zarah, that v'lo hayom little schar, there's no schar today. And the Rebbe explains first, was the Tam Hashinu is moving by Pashtus. The reason for the change, that the Gemara in Avodah Zarah changes from the Lashon of the Gemara in Eruvin, is moving by Pashtus. It's understood simply. From Pasuk Hayom La'asoisum lernt of the Gemara Tzvei Zacham. It says to do today Hayom La'asoisum, that you should keep the mitzvahs Hayom to do them. The Gemara learns two things. Aleph them diuk in. The first thing we derive from the language, as the last soisom asiyas mitzvah is hayom davke. Hayom, we can only do it. Last soisom is only hayom. Unit l'mochel l'olam haba. So that's very clear. We can only do it today, and not do mitzvahs l'olam haba. But the second point is that is in the last soisom. Here the thing is, we can do and not reward. The diuk in last soisom, and the zman von hayom el mazeh is oif last soisom davke, to do unit oif little schar. It's to work and not to receive the schar. So the emphasis, the second thing that we're learning out, first we're learning out that we can only do mitzvahs today. The second thing is that we can't expect hayom la'asoisom, and we can't expect schar today. Unitam little schar. Und das ist der dir haloshen in Avodah Zarah. That's when the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, "Beloi hayom little schar." Today is not the time to get schar. While the limud is not der tzav haschiyuv aschar is lemocher. What we're learning from the pasuk is not that the positive that you will get schar lemocher, nor in the tzad hashlila. We're learning it in the negative that you do today and you don't get schar today. As a yom in Elam Hazeh, that today in Elam Hazeh is la'asoisam davke. It's only to do unit. There's man for little schar. It's not the time to get schar. Schar mitzvah b'hal moleka. There's no reward. The reward of a mitzvah in this world, it doesn't exist. Bal pizeh. So basically, the Rebbe says that the language in the Masechet Avodah Zarah is more clear because it talks about the actual diuk that we learn from hayom la'asoisom that today we can do, but we don't get schar today. If you should say that Rashi's intent here is that inyan from schar mitzvah b'hal moleka, is the concept that there is no reward in this world, as mit hayom la'asoisom is the pasuk machadish. That the pasuk comes with hayom la'asoisom. The pasuk tells us the novelty. As der Eberster zolt nit up at tzaddik b'chayav b'elam hazeh. Hashem does not pay a tzaddik during his lifetime in this world. That's what minischar hayom la'asoisim. You can only do. You're not going to get paid. Benigut susoinov, as opposed to the enemies, was b'chayav mishmalim lo gemulei hatov. It's fakir during his lifetime. He pays him for his good. What he's done, he gets it dafke here, so he doesn't get Elam Haba. So it would have been more fitting the Loshen in the Rashi, as it says, and not today to get the schar. That's what the Rashi should emphasize. And not to say that lemocher you get the schar. Because the emphasis is that you don't get it today, as in Masechet Avodah Zarah. This tells us also that Rashi must mean something else, and he's not coming to tell us schar mitzvahs ba'al maleka. Besides all the questions that Rebbe piled up before, that the pshat bechlal, it doesn't really fit to say that there's no reward in this world. The Rebbe brings even to say we're talking about regular reward. We're not even talking about such convenience to be able to do the mitzvahs. Quotes from the Rashi. All this points that Rashi does not say here that there is no schar, that the enemies, he pays them the schar in this world so they don't get the Olam Haba. The tzaddikim, he doesn't pay in this world to give them more Olam Haba. That's not the pshat, because we do get schar in this world in Pshuta Shemikra. So what is then Rashi saying? So the Rebbe will explain that Rashi is actually telling us a difference, that we don't take the schar, we receive the schar. There's a difference between receiving schar and getting schar, and that's what Rashi is talking about now, as we'll see as the Rebbe continues. The Rebbe says, so we can say, as Rashi bavoron kol hanal b'diuk l'shoinen, that Rashi answers all the above the issues of reward. What we're discussing, how could we not have reward? Rashi, if you look in the Rashi does not say that there is no reward. Rashi says ulemocher chulitel schorim, that lemocher will take the schar, not mocher to get the reward. The reward we get now too, but the future we don't take the reward. The Rebbe explains. In Meseches Erevin lefanenu is the lashon lemocher lekabel schar. Tomorrow we receive the schar. Aber Rashi kleibt ois. Rashi chooses Tavke the Girsa from Mesechet Avodah Zorah, specifically the version of Mesechet Avodah Zorah where it says litel schorim, that lemochar litel, to take the schar. The dig is noch mer boile. This pointing out this specific wording is more striking in the fact, apianal, based on what we said before, because as hascholas haloshon klaiptish Rashi dafke dem loshon from Mesechus Eruvin. The beginning of the language, Rashi chooses the language of Mesechta Eruvin, ulemochor. So what happens the next day, and unit from Mesechta Avodah v'lo hayoyim. So Rashi seems to follow the language of the Gemara in Eruvin, because Rashi is not talking about the negative, what doesn't happen in Olam Haba, but Rashi tells what does happen, that you get the schar. It's not that you don't get the schar in this world, but he chooses to talk like the Gemara in Eruvin, that you do get the schar in the Osid. And yet, what's the lashon that Rashi chooses is little schar that the Gemara uses in Avodah Zorah. So you see that Rashi specifically wants to use the word little. Now, why does Rashi? What is the explanation? So the Rebbe said we can explain what does it mean that in the future, in the Osid, we will take schar, little schar, will take schar. So the Rebbe says we'll understand by introducing the chiluk zwischen the lashonos lekabel and little. What's the difference between language to receive or to take? So the difference like this: lekabel zchoram, to receive the reward, weist as der schar kommt mitzad dem neusel. That points to the fact that the reward comes from the giver. All what you're doing is you're receiving it. You're not taking it, but you're just getting it. The makabel is nit kim balabayis if alein nemen dem schar. The recipient is not in charge to take the reward, nor is totally in the noisim. He is dependent on the giver. Eris blois amakabel. All what he is a recipient. Mashen came little schorum, but when it says to take the reward, the word little, vice that points as der Odom nemt allein dem schar v'chakumtim, that the person takes on his own that which he deserves. So Rashi chooses the language here, little schar. On the mit macht Rashi klor, and that way Rashi clarifies it. He makes it very clear. Adoretzich wegen an ander Sug in Eifun Tashlum Schar. We are talking here a different category in the way the reward is paid. It's another type of payment of reward. Another kind. Lemochor le'olam habo v'tzechoyvta nachidush. Lemochor. In Olam habo, there is going to be a novel. It's going to be a novel thing, something new. As demot werden Eden werden balabatim in zeir schar. The Yidden will become in charge, the owners, the bosses over their reward. They velun nemen allein. They're going to take it on their own. Noitel sein schorum. They will take their schar. So we're saying lemochor in Elam haba will take schar. It's not take schar. Das hat gescheiches nicht zum Inyan von schar mitzvah bei alma. This has nothing to do with the reward of mitzvahs in this world. Canal halt Rashi, as we said before. It is Rashi's view in Pshuto Shel Mikra, in the simple reading of the text, as is dos schar mitzvah by alma, that there is reward for a mitzvah in this world. With the ribu psukim pasreiden, ben yudim gashmin, as the many verses talk about physical promises. Al schar farkim ateva mitzvahs. That's you get a reward for observing Torah mitzvahs. But in this world, yes, there is schar in this world. Is that inyan for schar and neifel v'lekabel schar? It's the way we get there, so we receive the reward. The Eibshter gives us and we receive it. The Eibshter gibt a Yidden kol tuv selo b'vanachayim b'zoyna. The Eibshter gives a Yidden all good eternally with children, life, and food, and everything in a wide way. But it's not that the Yid has the power and the strength to never lay them schar to take this reward alone. So therefore, what's the chiddush taking alone? Und therefore, since it comes from the Eibishter, can sein, it's possible, as in them zones, the Chamol mission, that sometimes you get involved, mix in, various side reasons, was einen Goyrem, which would cause, as lepoils all of them schar nit bakumet, he's not going to receive the schar. If you're not taking it on your own, the Eibishter is giving it to you. Sometimes it can happen that things are going to go outside reason that you're not going to get that schar. And the Rebbe brings the example from the Gemara. The Gemara is discussing over there, how come he fell off the ladder and he died when he was bringing the pigeons and Shiluch HaKan and giving it to his father, doing Kibbud Avayim. And the Gemara suggests, well, maybe he was thinking about Avodah Zarah, so he was doing an Avera while he was doing the mitzvah. So what does it have to do? But the schar is there. So you see clearly that even though there's a schar, if you think an Avera in the middle, you might lose the schar. That's when you don't take it. That's when you give it. Little means you take it, doesn't matter what. Al derech with the Gemara zok by the Meise was Rabbi Yaakov had gesehen. The Gemara says the story that Rabbi Yaakov saw the einer was Amar le Aviv ale lebiro, one whose father told him go up to the large room, and bring me the birds. So he went up to the big room. He sent away the mother, so it was Makayim Shuluch Hakan. He took the babies, the chicks, and as he went back, as he's going down the ladder from where he climbed, he fell down and he died. So the Gemara says, well, where is his reward? And the Gemara says, maybe, the Gemara says, as Eber would given Mahareb Avedis Chom, if he would be thinking about Avodah Zarah, The Gemara says, if he was thinking about the Zorah, then he wouldn't get the reward from the man Yitav Loch Varachta Yom Kipshutei. If it means your days will be good and long life, literally, he would not get it. Why? Because he was thinking about the Zorah. So you see, even when the Torah gives you a schar, Kipshutei in the Gemara there, the Gemara's reasoning is, but if he does obey the Zorah, he may lose out on that schar. That is when you get schar. Those haste. As afal people, the mitzvahs atzmon hotel gitom b'shlemuson, the mitzvahs themselves, kibud aba aim shluach hakeni did completely. Und der chesron is given in a zweiten Inyan, and the lacking was something else. He was thinking about the Zorah. Was hat nicht gescheiches as is mitzvahs elu. He has no connection to doing these mitzvahs. Is as poila v'zolim schar nit bakum, and that can impact that he should not get the schar. So that's when we receive schar. So schar in this world, yes. Can it sometimes not reach to you? Yeah. But well, Eden allein nehmen, Neutel sein Schorim, Eden will take themselves, they will take the schar. Und es will nicht kennen sein können, them, and there will be no delays, nobody can hold it, nobody can prevent it. That is the chiddush of the Oslo, nothing to do with schar mitzvahs. There is schar mitzvahs, but schar mitzvahs sometimes you have to receive it, and there could be something mixed in. But if you can take it, that means that nobody can go ahead and change that. Both. So based on this, we understand the specific language of Rashi. To take. We're not saying not today. But the chiddush of Rashi is because what's the novelty? It's not about not today. It's about the new kind of schar and lost love. We're not telling you that not today that there's no schar. Yes, there is. As opposed to the hate, those who he hates was he pays him his good in this world, and we're gonna say no, but the tzaddik doesn't get no, that's not the pshat. The Adrab, the Pirush Rashi, according to Rashi, is der Eibishter. Zicher Mishalm zu Tzadikim, the Eibishter definitely pays the righteous Gemulim Atoy Boilam Hazeh, what they have done good in this world. As articulated very clearly in the simple meaning of the pasuk, the Ali Yudim Gashmi B'Torah, all the promises, physical promises of Torah. Now the Chiddush is, so here we're not talking about not. It's not, they are getting everything. The Chiddush is in the Mchiv. As L'mochor L'olam Habo, wird sich öfter ein neuer öffnen in Tashem Schar. L'olam will be a new type of payment of reward. Was in the Toha Yoim. There's not today. L'mochor, there will be little Schar to the Schar. So, when the Hemshach HaPsukim, so what is the flow of the verses? Do is früher steht Misalim L'Shoinov Elponov Lavida. He pays those who he hates directly to their faces so he can destroy them. Lo Yacher L'Shoinov, he's not going to delay for him. Elponov Yishalmi, he'll pay him to his face right away for the good things. As a Rosh Tzopna B'Davke Gleich B'Chayiv, you pay him specifically during his lifetime. In order to get him lost so he won't have Olam Haba. As opposed to those who are not enemies, is Shaykh Hamol as menzol them schar nit bakum gleich. It happens sometimes you don't get it right away. So now, when there's an Aveda or something like that, it's delayed. Then also the Posik, then the Posik of Shamarta Samitzvah Goimer Hayoim La'asoisam. As other Seder, as es ken sein an ophalten Tashlum Schar. This order that sometimes there may be a delay in the payment of the reward is not Hayoim. And then we take it no matter what, there's no delay. Say the pure pnimi in the Mchilu Kanal. What is the inner explanation, this distinction? Tziter Tashlum Haschar is an eifum from the Kabul, whether the payment of the reward is in a way that you just receive it, or the little or you take it. Bisman hazeh is der Inyan von Tashlum Schar verbunden mit Beis Din Shel Maila. Nowadays, before Olam Habo, this idea of getting paid a reward, it is associated with the heavenly court. Und darüber nimmt man nicht allein dem Schar, therefore you don't take yourself, you don't guarantee the Schar. As is totally in Beis Din Shel Maila, it hinges on the heavenly court. As opposed to in the future to come, in Elam Habo, this month, from Yom Shakul the Shabbos, a time when it's all Shabbos. Yes, Leimar has been designed the Inyan from Beis Din. There's not going to be the whole idea of a Beis Din. Shomaylo. Al derech be by Shabbos and alle bote dinim sgurim, just like on Shabbos. Now all the Beis Dins are closed. So Shabbos in Olam Habo, there's no Beis Dins there. So there's nobody to make judgment. Ubemela, if you did a Ma'aseh Tov, you don't have to go through Beis Din anymore. Which he deserves reward, is the Shaykh can ophalt, can't delay it. When a nemt schare and he takes the reward. So basically, in the Olam Habo, you just take it because there's no Beis Din, nobody, no further judgment. Yes. So don't know there's also an additional, whether you can take it without delay or not, but there's another difference between whether we say lekabel, to receive, or little to take. Lekabel, before we said the distinction is lekabel means you still gotta depend on the giver, and sometimes the Beis Din may delay it, may be a reason. A little means that you take it no matter what. There's another difference. Lekabel means all your participation is just you stand there to receive. Little means you got to do something, you got to take it. Lekabel schorim weiß, as der Schar kommt on zum Odom durch dem Neusen. That points the fact that this comes the giver gives it. Der Neusen hat nicht nur bestimmt dem Schar. The giver, not only did he decide the reward, nor as gibt es ihm up. He is the one that gives it to him. That Odom is not a mekabel dem Schar. The person is only receiving. He's just a recipient. Mashenkin little schorim to take the Schar weiß. Der Odom darf es nehmen. The person still needs to take it. The Neusen bestimmt a Schar for the mekabel. The giver decides the Schar for the recipient. But you still got to take it. Aber k'dei to soll ihm ankommen. But in order for him to reach him, needs, you got to take it. You got to know it. As all those natals sein, you should take it. Der Friber, der mit deitet on Rashi dem Chilik zwischen the Yehudim Gashmim und das Schar von Olam Habo. And with this, Rashi points out the distinction, the difference between the physical promises and the reward of Olam Habo. The Yehudim Gashmim, the physical promises in this world, the Torah gives us, seinen alle in Geder von the Kabel Schor. We're all just receiving the reward. Der Eibishter Gita Eden Koltuv Sala Bebona Chayim Mezone Bekulim Revicha. The Eibishter gives a Yid all good eternally, for eternity, children, life, and food, and everything in a wide way. In an Eifun, as der Yid Bakum Zayin Schar B'derech Memel, in a way that the Yid gets his reward automatically, which means he just got to get it. He doesn't have to do anything else. He doesn't have to go take it. He just receives it. It's all been determined. As opposed to the spiritual reward in the world to come, is a it's a higher category of reward. The life of the world to come is not that Inyan was that mentions Blois HaMakabel. It's not just that the person is a recipient, nor der Mensch darf neutral sein dem Schar. The person needs to take that reward. Wenn gefindt sich in ein Olam, wenn man hat die Möglichkeit, you find yourself in a world which you have the possibility to nennen sein Mesiva Shechina, to benefit, to enjoy the ray of the Shechina. But you still got to take it. But in order to actually benefit, enjoy, muss sein der little schar. You need to take the schar. So physical promises is given to us. Spiritual promises and delight, living of the delight, the ray of the Shekhinah, over there you got to take it. You need to take the schar. And with this, Rashi cautions and answers us another issue in this verse. When we learn the verse to keep the mitzvahs, today you'll do it. It turns out as the inyan for shmiras ha'torah mitzvahs is shaykh hayom davke, that the idea to keep Torah mitzvahs is only today. So the question is aroused. So what are we going to do in the future? What's going to be our service? In Elam Haba, we need to do so. We need to be the little. You need to, because otherwise, what are we going to do? I feel a bepashtus statement, even very simply, we don't understand. As es hot nicht genau zu sagen, it doesn't really make sense to say. As in Elam Haba wird nicht sein, Chas v'sholem kediyim von Avodas Hashem, that in Elam Haba there's going to be, God forbid, there's no service of Hashem. So what are we going to do if we're saying Hayom la'aseisim and not l'mochar? What are we going to do? What are we going to do l'mochar? So Rashi l'mochar l'Elam Haba litel schar. We'll have to take the schar. That's going to be the avodah. In Elam Haba v'liden farnemen sich mit der avodah for little scharim over there. They will be busy with the avodah to taking the schar. Then turns out according to this. As the Pirush Rashi hat nicht kein Sheiches in this context. So the Shakla Vitari wegen Schar Mitzvah Ba'alma doesn't have a connection to the debate whether there is a reward of mitzvah or not, because we're not talking about reward of it. We're talking about what's going to be the work. Although is not the Shailetz in the Eibishter Tzol Schar B'Elam Hazeh. It's not the question, does the Eibishter pay reward B'Elam Hazeh, nor in was besteht the Avodah von Idin L'Mochar. Here the question is, what are we going to do in L'Mochar? What's the Avodah? And the Avodah is little schar, to take the schar. Test. The chilik zwischen the zwei l'shonis l'kabel little. So basically these were two explanations. One explanation is l'kabel, that you get it no matter what. And that you get it, but it's still up to the Naisen, and he gives it to you, and it could be a change. Mashenkein, little means you get it no matter what. And the other interpretation the Rebbe is giving now is that l'kabel means you don't have to do anything, you just sit back. But in La'asid, what's going to be the avodah? The avodah is going to be little schar. That is the avodah. The schar is going to be the avodah. The Rebbe says now in Tez, that Hiluk zwischen the zwei l'shonis l'kabel little kevanech l'kasher sein with the zwei days when he gave schar v'esh. We can also connect it to the two opinions about reward and punishment, how the reward and punishment are associated with the mitzvahs. Aleph, number one, as a kumen b'derech nisi, that they come miraculous, which means there's no real connection. The reward comes, there's no real natural connection between the reward you get for what you've done. Das heißt, that the schar v'einish, when we talk about reward and punishment, they're not be'oifum v'sibum v'subum mamish. They're not in a way a cause and effect. Because of I did this, this is the effect, the result. It's a consequence, mamish, from the mitzvah aveda. Of the mitzvah aveda, the mitzvah brings the reward. Nor, this is similar to a reward and a punishment that a person decides for a good deed or something, a non-good deed, what the punishment or the reward is going to be. It's arbitrary. It's not a natural result of it. That means by finis base. Number two, as they come naturally. This says, as the other interpretation is that the Eibishter might be given in the mitzvahs and aveda gufa, that the Eibishter implanted and gave the nature of the mitzvah and aveda itself. As they bring the reward or the punishment. They come as a result. It's like a natural phenomenon that results from the act. Und das ist der Chilik zwischen l'kabel or the little. This is the difference between receiving or taking. If the mitzvah reward comes by nature, kommt euch as b'shasai tut a mitzvah, that when a Yid does a mitzvah, there's no additional necessary, not expected, demanded at something addition to receive the schar. It's a natural result. The asiyas mitzvah is the siba b'chabring dem schar b'derech memela. Doing the mitzvah, that's the cause that brings automatically the schar, lekabel schar. That would be to receive the schar, like b'olam hazeh. The schar kum b'derech memela. When the Adam daf is not mekabel zayin, it comes by itself, and the person has to receive it because it's a natural phenomenon. Oy baber schar mitzvahs. Oy baber schar mitzvahs is nit ken in your TV. If it's not a natural phenomenon, but as kum blois b'derech nisi comes miraculous, it means it's a connection that you do this, you get that. Kum tuis. The schar kum nitom b'derech memel mitzad rasiyas mitzvahs. That reward does not come automatically because you did the mitzvah. Payment reward is an act which is not a natural, it's a payment. It's outside. Apula nisef is an additional act. As dav zayin apula punisinas unetilas schar. There needs to be given, and therefore you need to take the schar. It's additional. And this will take place in the future, but that now it's mostly just receiving because it's a natural phenomenon. But in the future, because of the great payment that it will be, that's going to be like little. Give addition in Eufenisi. Yud. Based on the above, we can explain the inner matter of things. Little scholar that tomorrow in about to take the reward. These two ways in payment of reward, whether it's a miraculous payment or it's a natural, they both exist in the spiritual reward for doing Torah mitzvahs. What is the spiritual reward? You have both. You have a nisidika payment and a natural payment. Says Yedua, as eine Veran zwei Suge schar. It's known that there is two categories in reward. The schar from Gan Eden, the reward of Gan Eden. Was is a schar mugbal kavayachol. It's sort of a limited reward. Weil dort is mehr der eure liki, was is melubish and say that ishtalshlos eure ma'amale. In Gan Eden, it shines the godly light, which is dressed in the order of ishtalshlos, the light that fills the world. That's Gan Eden. And base the schar from Tchisa Mesim, the reward you get when the resurrection of the dead was demel, but meir zayin the eure makif. Then you will have the shine from the surrounding light, shalamaylam ishtalshlos, of higher than eure sebev. But that's an unlimited schar. And therefore, der schar was is verbunden mit eure the reward which is tied to the eure that fills the world, the mugbal dike eure was is mit zum lefiarach hanivroim, which is restricted relative to the created being. The bald as the gabe dem eure is the avoda for nivroim tefes makom. Since relative to that light, the service of Nivraim takes place because it's still within Memale, it's restricted by the Nivraim. So is there schar ba'ifun tivis? So then it's a natural reward because it's a result. The avoida from Eden to Edom schar. Your avoida brings that schar, accomplishes that schar. It comes like a natural result from the Oifam Memale because it's a measured and limited, and it relates to what you've done. It's a natural result, as opposed to the reward of the mitzvah which comes from the surrounding light. Is the Shaykh to zone of them, then it doesn't fit to say about it. TV in the Avodah, that's a natural concept in service. Well, is the Avodah from the Vroim B'Tevis Mokem, because well, that light, the service of the created being doesn't really mean anything to it. So you can't really naturally bring down that light, that reward. That is a miraculous, which is not, has to be It comes as a gift. Hashem wants it, gives you a nisidika for doing this. A nivra gets this great reward. Und das ist der Tam von was lemocher leolam habo little schorim. That's why, this is the reason why nafke leolam habo you get that schar. In olam hazeh is made begoli begilu mamish nor der sechar hamugol. In this world, what is openly shines only the limited schar. Mitzad oram emale. Und the riber is the tashlum haschar. Therefore, the payment of the schar noifum from the kabel schar. We receive the schar. The avodah von Eden tut oif the nesinas haschar. Your avodah accomplishes that, and then you get it. You just receive it. Azoyes es kommt on in a way that it comes automatic. When the daf is normal kabel and all what you got to do is receive. As opposed to tomorrow, when is it meir zayin the schar ability gvuli, when the unlimited reward is going to shine mitzadei seviv, because of the light of seviv which will be revealed. Is a tashlum aschar in an eifon for little schar. From there, the payment comes. You take the schar because it's bein aruch. The schar kommt nicht b'derech hamayla. It doesn't just come down automatically. It's a miraculous kind of a schar. But it's a besonder pula for nisinas and netilas haschar. It's a separate act of giving and taking the schar. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Chanan Tovshin Chofei. So you see. In this context, the Tilas Aschar is associated with Sinas because it is a gift the way it comes from above.